Is it live? Is it live? I can't tell. It is live. All right. So hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to our final broadcast of our fall series of Google Hangouts with PASA alumni. I am your host, the Alumni Relations Chair for PASA Network, Arlen Mendiola. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is how it works. Each month on the first Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'll be hosting a panel of PASA alumni through the use of Google Hangouts. Each time we'll be talking about a specific topic that was voted on by current PASA students. Today, we'll be talking about having a family and a career. It is my hope that through the use of Google Hangouts, I am creating a platform that allows our PASA alumni to share their successes and knowledge with current PASA students, as well as other folks within the higher education community. And the beauty with this is that after the broadcast is done, it'll become a YouTube video. So here's a rundown of what to expect in this Google Hangout. In about a few moments from now, I'll have our alumni introduce themselves. After introductions, we'll have a conversation around the questions that PASA students submitted prior to this Google Hangout. After our discussion, we'll take questions from our live viewers on our Google Plus page, and then we'll conclude our final remarks. We have 3 of our wonderful alumni here today. One alumni will be joining us shortly because she's coming from a staff meeting, so just you'll wait and see. So we'll have both David and David introduce themselves. So without further ado, they'll introduce themselves. So name, year that they graduated from PASA, your current institution, your current office, your position, and what do you actually do within your position?
Can we go first?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm David Ginchansky. I am a 2005 PASA alumni. I am here at USC, if you can't tell in the background. Hopefully that's obvious enough. I've been in this position as a career counselor for well over 9 years, and basically the majority of my responsibility is to have one-on-one conversations with students about anything involved with careers. So it could be just getting a quick resume review, it could be I don't know what to do with my life, so it could be the whole assessment, conversation, mock interviews, things along those lines. In addition to that, do a lot of programming to get word out about different types of careers that are out there to increase opportunities for networking so students can interact with employers, things along those lines. So that's the majority of what I do on a daily basis. I have, since this is a family show, I have 2 children. I have a 9-year-old and I have a 5-year-old, and I've been happily married now for 2 years.
Thanks, David. David, you want to take it away?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is David Hong, and I graduated from the PASA program in 2008. I was in Santa Barbara for 5 years after that, and now I'm back at USC. I'm not in my office right now. I'm actually at home, but I am the assistant director for residential education. I oversee the Parkside area. So any live-in staff member that we have with the resident assistants, our residents, assistants, residential area supervisors, which are a couple of our full-time staff members, and so I oversee all those live-in staff members. Create policies and procedures, oversee any kind of problematic behavior in the halls. In my role, I also serve as the advisor for our residential student government, which oversees all of USC housing, 7,000 members there. So we have leaders from each community that I'll talk about issues that face their community and to see how we can improve their living environment programmatically or through the administration. And in terms of family, I have a partner. We've been married for 3 years, and we have a 11-month-old daughter, and I'm actually at home right now on family leave for the next few weeks.
Great. And our third alumni who will be joining us shortly is actually Julienne from the Master's Programs Office. So as I mentioned before, she's coming out from a meeting, so hopefully she'll be able to join us shortly. But without further ado, we'll go into our discussion for this Google Hangout. So when I saw the results of what PASA students voted on for our fall series, I was really excited that this topic was part of the top 4. I feel that this isn't discussed enough within the program. I also recognize that our PASA students are at different points in their lives. Some are single, whether by choice or not. Some are actively dating. Others are in committed relationships. a few are about to propose, and a small handful are already married. I want to ask you all, what does having a family in this profession look like? Either David or David.
David, go ahead.
Maybe go first. Okay. What does a family in this profession look like? I don't know if I'm going to fully answer the question. But I will say that in general, because student affairs is such a helping, caring profession, there's definitely, in the perception that I've had personally, as well as the interaction I've had with other parents or other people who have family, and understanding and acceptance of the need of that work-life balance or work-life blend that is generally needed to care for the two priorities that you have, the priority of having a family as well as the priority of wanting to make a difference and create a community and improve the lives of people. And so I don't know if that answers it, but in general, I just kind of find that there is a way that you can balance it too.
Right. Are there specific concrete ways in which you try to balance? Like I know, because I've worked it before and I know a little bit about you, your work schedule is kind of different compared to the other career campuses.
Yes, my work schedule is different. I come in earlier. My hours are actually 7:30 to 4 every day, with a 30-minute lunch in between. And the reason why that's done is because then I have the opportunity to leave at the day, get my kids from school, take care of them in the evening, and things along those lines. There's also other people here at USC, and it's probably the case with any type of institution in higher ed that utilize their child care system. A lot of schools, their children are in schools, have great after-school programs as well. So things are in place to kind of help manage things and make things work. But again, I think you find it most to be the case, not only here in the Career Center, but in the student affairs profession as well. That if there's a conversation that takes place with the people that you work with, and you figure out ways to balance it out, the give and take of what you can do for them and what they can do for you, as well as the communication that you have with your own partner. Those are the types of things that help to make it work.
Great. David, do you want to share your take on this question?
Sure. Actually, I struggle a little bit with this question because families just look so different in any aspect that you go to. The folks that I've seen in my past, I've seen that they've incorporated their kids into their work, and I think it depends on which branch of student affairs that you're into. I think in my past, I have a res life background, and I think I've seen families incorporate a little bit more because of the fact that we're on campus folks. I live on campus right now, and I know that is a little different for assistant director roles in a lot of other institutions. But in terms of I've seen RDs, resident directors in the past with children, so I see them almost in their regular work to a certain degree. But then I've had other supervisors who weren't live-in who also incorporated those children at work every once in a while. So it wasn't just this one side that I saw of professionals. I actually got to see them as not just as a supervisor, but also as a parent and a family member and a partner. So that's just something that I've noticed, and that's something that I want to try to incorporate my family with. My family situation is a little bit different because my wife actually works in student affairs as well at USC, and our daughter is fairly visible because we have the meal plan. We take her out. Right now she was with me, so I'm just kind of walking around with her. Prior to that, my wife wasn't working, so she was around. So people see us, and people know us in that way. So that's just one way that a family can look like in our profession.
Great. That's a really good point that you put out there, David. And there is something to be said about what department or division you are in within student affairs, because that does have a huge effect on how you can raise a family or how you can incorporate family into it, or kind of balance the two together. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
That's interesting that you two brought it up, because that's kind of segues into our next question. a little bit about like, well, what things do you consider when evaluating a job or department? Like, I think a lot of us within PASA, or especially those second years and third years who are about to graduate, starting to look for the positions, different institutions and offices. And there's certain things that we already are starting to keep in mind, like what we want to evaluate and the experience that we have. But I think this component is definitely different. And depending upon where we're at within our careers, but also within our personal lives, maybe for me, like I might not be considering of like looking for a office that is family friendly, that can be easy to have a flexible schedule like yours.
Mm-hmm.
So what are things do you think, whether you consider for yourself or that we should consider, like when we're looking at a job, if we're thinking about family?
I think you need to know the realistic aspects of the job that you're applying for. Something like career services, you know that you're going to probably have a few times that you're going to have to work late into the evening, but for a majority of the time, the office is open from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Whereas something like Res Ed, and David, obviously, I'll have you speak more to that, but that's 24/7. You need to be available at all times. The opportunity to be on campus could be advantageous to you. There's other areas of student affairs that also have that into account. Now, another thing that I would definitely take into account when you are talking to the people and interviewing with them or learning more about those fields is asking about just the general culture of not only the institution that you're working at, but the particular department that you're working at within that you want to work at within that institution. They'll give you a pretty good general feel throughout the interview in terms of what their expectations are. And even when you get into the negotiation phase, once you are a considered person, bringing that into conversation is a really good thing to take into account. Just don't make it the first thing you talk about. make it something that you talk about later on. But I think those are some of the main points that I would think about.
Right. You definitely want to see how supportive that department or that environment's going to be. You want, fortunate enough that folks like David is able to flex a schedule. For myself, I know I have evening commitments quite a bit. I have evening meetings at least 2 to 3 times a week. A lot of those times I will bring my daughter with me, and I'm always evaluating when is it appropriate to bring her along, because I know like sometimes she'll make a little noise every once in a while, so I always want to see like, will that little noise be too distractive to the other folks there? And I know sometimes when I bring my daughter to these meetings, she becomes a distraction because like everyone wants to go see the baby, everyone wants to go see oh, can I interact with the baby a little bit, and it kind of takes away from what's happening. So I'm always conscious about how that works because as much as I love my family, I don't want it to become a distraction to who I'm serving. So that's the thing that you really need to see when you're evaluating what type of job that you're going into, what kind of office culture you're going into. I also want to think about, will folks be okay if I bring my daughter in every once in a while? It's not going to be a regular occurrence, but you want to see if it's okay with other folks. You also, and when I was talking about how that works, because as much as I love my family, I don't want it to become a distraction to who I'm serving. So sorry, I think that's a thing that of other things.
Sorry, Julienne joined.
Okay. So I just wanted to add the other part, just a reminder of the work that you're doing. Say if you're going to be in judicial affairs or something like that, and having a baby around may not be the best situation, or a child around may not be the best situation for that conduct meeting or whatever you're doing. So think about the type of work that you're a part of.
Thanks, David. And thanks, Julienne, for joining in the Google Hangout. So just to catch you up, so we just went into introductions and we're starting to talk about one of the questions that I sent out. But if you could introduce yourself, the year that you graduated from PASA, your current institution, office, and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, great. Sorry, everybody, I'm late. I had another meeting, so thanks, Arlen, for inviting me to today's webinar. My name is Julienne Jose-Chen. I graduated the PASA program in 2009. I'm currently working at Ressier with the Master's Program Office as an Assistant Director. And I think that covered all the questions, right? I'm not sure if that, yeah.
So we've already talked about what does having a family in this profession look like, and then we moved on to what things do you consider when evaluating a job. So I know this kind of disrupts the flow, but maybe you could offer a little bit on your insight with these particular questions.
Well, I was watching, David's response and the other responses that were given, and I do agree that it also depends on the kind of environment that you're entering in, and it's really important to establish those priorities and what's important to you up front. And I'm just grateful that the environment that I work in right now really acknowledges the importance of work-life balance. And so far, so good. I've been back from maternity leave for about 6 months now, so I'm still trying to get the hang of the professional life as well as balancing my family life. And I'm sure it gets easier. That's what I'm told. It gets easier when the little one gets older. And I know you're smiling because maybe it doesn't. Yeah, so I'm just really grateful for all the support I've been given from my peers, from even the students. They've been really supportive, and I think that's really important too. They're really excited to see when I bring my little daughter around, or they're just excited to know more about my family and everything like that. So I think this kind of profession is really conducive to having, a family. So I'm really grateful for all of that.
So I guess we'll transition into the next question. And I know some of you kind of alluded to your responses for this particular one. But how do you all maintain your own balance between family and work? And if you want to elaborate also, how does your partner maintain their balance as well?
That's a good one.
I'm first again?
Oh, if you want to.
Okay, so, the flexibility of my schedule is nice. There's no denying that. But, there's definitely busy periods for me in the Career Center. Generally, students really want or utilize our services all year long, but generally in the first couple of months of each semester. So knowing that ahead of time and knowing the types of events that we have coming up, I tend to try to communicate that to my spouse and let her know what's going on. And because we have enough of a plan ahead of time, I can pretty much keep my schedule pretty open. When I communicate with students and student organizations about presenting, oftentimes they have a tendency of wanting it now, and there's a conversation that we have with them. And it's not just me, it's just the whole office in general about doing it. Give us a 2-week advance notice, things along those lines, so that we can make it work to our advantage. I'm fortunate that my partner is flexible with her schedule as well, so if there are those days that I have to stay late, she's there as well. But we have that system already kind of in place. She's the one that drops them off to school in the morning. I'm the one that picks them up in the evening, and that's worked out pretty much in my favor. Great.
I think for me that I now have a better understanding of work-life balance. Before, it was all about getting the job done at all costs. And I've always lived in, so I would just kind of do work at 11 o'clock at night and keep going until whatever I needed to do was done. But now I think I actually have a better balance, that understanding that the work is always going to be there. So when I leave work, I'm done with it. That I have other things to focus on now. So I'm still learning the lesson, but I've been a lot better about that. I think that this point in time in my life, I've probably been the best at my work-life balance. Just understanding that I have a little one that I have to take care of that's more important than some random project or some form that I needed to get done.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, Having a family definitely forces you to really clock out. Um, in the beginning of my career, I was like David. I would do anything, everything to get the job done. I would go to all the events, go on the event, even if it's on a Saturday. It didn't matter, and that worked in that stage of my life. But now that I've been kind of pushed into another stage, it really forces me to, okay, it's 4 o'clock, I gotta get home, I gotta pick up my daughter and everything like that. So it's good and bad because it's forcing me to keep work at work, but at the same time, sometimes there's something that I really, have an itch to scratch kind of thing. Like I really want to get it done, but I just can't. So I get torn a lot. So, for me, I'm still struggling with it just because I'm so new to this family thing. But I'm definitely learning. And unlike what was said before in terms of the figuring out a routine, that's definitely important. And I really need my partner's help on that. And luckily, my husband's also in student affairs, so we do kind of understand the responsibilities and the commitments that we both have. What's a really busy time for him is not so much for me, and vice versa. So, for example, I'll take some days off because I need to take my daughter to a doctor's appointment, and he'll take some days off when I need to be at work and she's not feeling good or things like that. So we can kind of piggyback off of each other in that way. So it's been really good. And he's struggling with the time work-life balance as well. So we kind of have to keep each other in check, like saying, "Oh no, you're home. Don't check your emails." We've constantly had to remind each other of that, like, "No, you're home. Just leave it until Monday when you can deal with it wholeheartedly." So I think that's been a struggle, but also a blessing at the same time.
I actually have a follow-up question to all of you with this. So I've always wondered, like, does your extended family kind of play a role in your support in trying to maintain this balance, or do you rely on close friends to also help you out as well?
Well, I could jump right in. My mom actually takes care of my daughter, so she's been a crucial help in terms of making sure that I'm supported in that way. But in terms of work-life balance, I think you really have to lean on your friends and your family to kind of really, make you remind yourself of what's important. It's not just you as a family unit, but also your extended family, your friends. You have to devote time to them as well, and just making you realize that there's so much outside of work. As fulfilling as it is, as challenging and great as it is, I think your family and friends are there to kind of remind you, hey, there's a life outside of that. So they've been really helpful. And there's sometimes where I feel like I'm disappointing them in some respects, like, if I can't make it to certain things because of work commitments or other things like that. But I think as you get older, I'm not trying to sound, wise or anything, but as you get older, I think some people realize, there's some things that are just important, and you kind of have to be more accommodating in that way. So.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my mother-in-law lives in town, so on quite a few occasions she'll be there on those days when we can't be there for our kids. But for the most part, it's good to have her there, and that's been great. And we have some friends at the school, parents, I should say, parents of our kids' friends at school that will on occasion be there for them, but that's more on rare occasions. So it's good to have that. You do feel kind of weird asking over and over again, but fortunately enough, it's not too much of a request. And I'm fortunate that I do have a mother who pretty much wants to watch my kids all the time if I can. So yeah.
Same here for me. My mom is local, so she was actually watching over my daughter about once a week. We had a daycare by committee over the last month. We actually had a few students helping out as well too. Yeah.
Cool. So I guess we'll move on to the next question. So there are actually a few couples that I look up to where I admire them for love that they have for one another. And I do recognize though that I only know what I see and hear, and I'll never have that insider knowledge to another couple's relationship. So like I always wonder like, well, what kind of conversations do they have with each other? Which is pretty much the question. So, what kinds of conversations do you have with your partners about your careers and family?
I'll jump in on this one here. Seeing that my partner, my wife, she is in student affairs as well. You know, when she was pregnant, I got the job at SC, and so it was a real big transition time. You know, having a baby, getting a new job, all at the same time. We really had to talk about our career path, really understanding where we were in our career path and where we wanted to go. We did have to look at it as a sacrifice, though, because with my wife taking time off, she had to sacrifice some time off herself just to make sure that the baby was good. But it took away from what she was doing. So we talked a little bit about career sacrifice to a certain degree, and understanding that when we're ready to make the next move, that when she's ready to take that big job, I might have to go right there with her and take that time off myself, or find something else along those lines. So I know that was a pretty lengthy conversation that we had. We also looked at other things just with budget. I think money is going to be a big part in all of this. Just saying, where are we at with our finances? Are we on the trajectory to pay off our loans so we can put it towards childcare? Can we even do this on one salary? And for a long time, we needed to do this on one salary, and and my partner was able to take unemployment for a little while too, and understanding the length of time that that affords you. So those are some of the conversations. I'm sure. So I'll leave it to my colleagues here to point out some of the other conversations they may have had.
I mean, you touched on a lot of them, David. There's definitely conversations about career sacrifice. We're both pretty established in our careers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't seek out the next step. I'm 9+ years here at SC, so that 15-year thing is staring me in the face right now. So, the conversation for me to be supportive for her, because she's a breadwinner in the family, is a conversation that we have. Priorities in terms of finances come up a lot, where we dedicate that stuff to. We definitely give ourselves time. I think one of the reasons why we have success in marriage is that we do have a standalone date once a week just to have adult conversation, even though in the end we really talk about kids most of the time. But adult conversation. And there's other conversations that you have when your kids start growing up. Once they start wanting to have control over their own lives, which is where my kids are right now, and school issues and things along those lines, that's just kind of where conversations go. But the important thing is that we set out time. We have allotted 30 minutes on a Sunday evening. We can just say, let's take a look back on our week and how did it go? What went well? What didn't go well? On a rating of 1 to 10, how have I been helpful to you? How have you been helpful to me? Things along those lines, so that we just stay on track. And I think that's just kind of kept things going.
Yeah, that's actually really great advice. I'm learning a lot. For me and my partner, yeah, we've had a lot of conversations, some not easy ones, and a lot dealing with finance. I didn't realize how important finance was going to be in the scheme of things. You think getting married, having a kid, no big deal, but actually you have to think about, like what David brought up, childcare, how am I going to pay for preschool, how am I going to pay for all these other expenses, kind of thing. And being as a mom, I think it's really something for me to think about with my career, because if I want to expand our family, I have to really think about the feasibility of, can I stay in this position? Can I stay in this establishment? How how long can I be in this position? What's my trajectory? Where do I see myself in 5 years? Where do I see myself in 5 years in relation to my family? So it's a lot to think about. And same with the point that David made about relocating, or if you find another job, what are you going to do at that point? And we've had those conversations, and as much as we would love to think that our roots are here, we're staying here, we're staying put, we can't really foresee what's going to happen in the next couple of years. So we have to be prepared for those kinds of options, like, am I going to move somewhere else out of state, or can I do that? If I do that, what would that do to my family? And same with salary. Can I take another job for a lesser amount of salary, knowing that I have a child to support, kind of thing? So that's the kinds of conversations we've had, and I really do like that idea of kind of regrouping as a couple and talking about things on an adult level, sometimes not even talking about kids in general, just because it's really important to maintain that relationship. I think now that my child's about to be 1 year old, I think we're kind of getting to a point where we can have adult conversations again. But yeah, so that's something that we're working on.
I think it's an interesting point that you bring up, Julian, about reflecting on like seeing yourself in 5 years, but in relation to your family. Because I think for me, like whenever I try to vision out like what the next 5 years look like, for me, like I often think about like, well, where are my students that I worked with in my nonprofit before coming into PASA? Because for them, I worked with them in a college prep program, and they enter in that program at the end of 6th grade year, and then they go on, or they stay with the program until their senior year in high school. And I'm like always thinking like, okay, which class is graduating right now? Where are they going to be in college? And I think what you bring up is kind of like an extension of that. Like when I have my own kids, like what do I need to think about? Because it's not about me anymore, and also including my partner, and including my kids. And kids.
Definitely.
It looks like David Hong, are you still on?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We just can't see you anymore.
Oh, okay. Wait
it's
a second.
Okay. We can still hear you.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Refreshing. Okay.
Oh, okay. Welcome back. So we'll transition into our last question from our PASA students. And I know y'all kind of touch upon this throughout, but if there's anything else, what are some things we should keep in mind as we pursue our careers and possibly start a family in the near future, or 5 years, or 10 years? Or if you want to elaborate on other points that were brought up throughout the Google Hangout.
Sure. I've got a few things here. I would say, first off, pay attention to the benefits section of your orientation session. I've never paid more attention to, I've worked at other jobs, and I would just snooze through. I was like, just give me the basic benefits, the basic health, the basic dental, all that kind of stuff. I didn't really care about anything else. This last time when I went my benefits orientation, I sat attentively, I took notes, I was asking questions because I needed to know exactly what I needed for my family. It's not just about you anymore. So that was the biggest thing. And my biggest tip is always pay into the most you can into the flex spending account. Our limit here was about $5,000 for dependents. Throw all your money into that because that's going to save you a lot more in the end. The other part is when you're thinking about leave or maternity leave, or for fathers, bonding time, family leave, talk to your HR folks right away so they can give you the best information on what you need to do, because it's written down on the website, but it's not really clear on what happens. So you really need to have a sit down and just make friends with the folks in HR, because they'll kind of save you on that. And then lastly, just even in terms of when you're interacting with folks in the office, something I do is I don't necessarily talk about my daughter all the time, because I don't want to be, that's just the David, he's the dad, of the group. And where everyone else in my office doesn't have children, So it's kind of isolating in that way. So but I also make sure I make a conscious effort not to bring her up every single time. Like, oh, you should have seen the cutest thing she was doing today. Like, I don't do that. I do that every once in a while to let them know that she's still around. But but I don't want them to think that that's just the only side of me. So and the thing is, I want to be able to connect with my other colleagues. And some of those colleagues may not have children, so they're not going to be able to connect to what I say if I just use the same examples all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I'll just echo
I wrote a few
that.
things
Oh, go ahead. No, go for it.
Okay, I'll go.
Well, I was just going to echo before he answered that. I automatically just thought maternity leave, because that was the biggest thing, biggest confusing part of anything that I ever had to deal with. Sign up for supplemental disability if you can, because I did not know that, and I wish I had done that before I went on maternity leave. So that kind of has to deal with benefits. But I think one thing that has helped me throughout my professional career is just being completely transparent with your employer about, every time you have a life change, like even if it's just buying a house or even if it's just getting married or anything like that, it's really important to be transparent about it, not just, because you want to brag, but also because, if you need to step away from work for whatever reason, at least they know that it's because you're dealing with this financial issue or you're dealing with this new adjustment in your life. So I think it's really important for them to be aware of that. And to the point of not, spending so much time talking about your family, I would echo that as well, just because, one, I just don't want to be seen as the mom, like everyone wants to put you in that kind of box. But two, also because, same thing with, posting pictures of your kid on Facebook, stuff like that. Some things you just want to keep private, and, the more people know, it's not always the best that they know everything about your daughter's life or anything like that. So it's just, maintaining that balance too of, talking about your daughter or your family to a certain extent. And I wouldn't, want to talk about really, really personal issues with, my boss or my coworkers about stuff that I'm dealing with at home. So it's just something to, stray away from.
You definitely want to, in regards to what David, you definitely know the benefits, know what's out there and available to make things a little bit easier for you. And definitely, you need to have a level of transparency in what you communicate to people. I think it's not an excuse, but you are able to say no more often because of the priorities that you now have as a family member. And I don't think, you can't say no every time, but people tend to be a lot more understanding because of that. Being flexible is still going to be important. So, whether or not you say no, just being around and available or flexible to talk to people when you need to talk to them, or present when you need to present, or do whatever work you need to do for them is just kind of a point to keep in mind. Ask the right questions when you get into that interview phase. Notice what's going on around where you're interviewing, because you're going to get to check out the office. Who else in that office has a family? If they have a family, and there's a good percentage of people who have family, then that probably gives you a good feeling that they understand the same issues that you have are the issues that they're going to have as well. And because of that, they'll probably be more acceptable when we do need to ask for that. Oh, I need to leave a little bit earlier today because I got to take my kid to the doctor, or my kid's going to have this play, or whatever the case may be. So that type of stuff is really important to keep in mind. I have, just on a final note, and I have kind of philosophy that your career is always going to be there, but your family only is there once. So my priority is really there. That's why I've been a senior career counselor for 8 to 9 years. A lot of people do feel more of a concern to get the EDD or to get the PhD or to advance in their profession. For me, that's not my priority right now. And it's really just kind of dependent on the person that you are. So if it is very important that you be the next Dr. Carey of this world or vice provost or whatever the case may be, there's certain other things you're going to have to take into account. And that's just that's where those conversations go, and that's where you kind of direct your pathway.
So I guess we'll transition now into our closing remarks. So for our alumni, if there is one main takeaway that you want our viewers to keep in mind, what would that be?
Have a family. No, I think in the end, I think it's just that obviously there's concerns about what happens when you have a family. It all does work out in the end. There's a lot of resources that are available to you. You'll find, especially in this profession, that even though there will be challenges, more often than not, you'll find colleagues who understand and can take up for your slack because you can give back in other ways, and just finding that medium is available to you. I think that's my guess. I mean, there's a lot out there, but that's just me.
I think I have two. One of them is, don't feel like you have to have a family in a certain timeline or certain way. There's always different ways of having it, and there's always different times of having it. Don't force, a child or a marriage or anything like that because it's the right time or whatnot. Similar to the point that was made earlier, your career will always be there, but your family won't. So feel free to, take the time to devote your energy in your relationship and then have a kid, or feel free to devote energy into your EDD program and then have a family. So it's really what is important to you. The second takeaway I would give out is, don't be afraid to ask for help as well. That was one thing that I was really hesitant on getting as being a new mom, is getting help. But it could be really isolating, like someone just said earlier, trying to do everything on your own, figuring out this whole work-life balance thing on your own. It's not good if you do it by yourself. So feel free to ask for help. Like other parents, I've sought out help from other moms that work in the same school that I do, because at least they know how it is to be a full-time employee but also have a child as well. So don't be afraid to ask for help, for sure.
I definitely want to add that you have to find your social network right there. I know there's a group on campus with like new moms. My wife is a part of that, so she enjoys that. But there's not much support for like new dads, right? But you need to find that support elsewhere. And I think that's not even just about this kind of conversation, but in general, you're not going to find too much stuff about for dads. So for the future dads that are out there, try to find that support group that can help you out as you go along. Especially I know in my social network with my friends, I'm one of the first to have children, so that's a little different too. So you might have to look elsewhere for that kind of support, not at a place where you normally would. So right now, I joined a dad group recently, and that's one outlet for me to help talk about issues that I don't get to talk about with people in my office or even my friends on a regular basis.
That's good.
Well, I want to thank our wonderful alumni for joining us today and sharing their insight and wisdom. I also want to give thanks to all of the alumni that contribute to our fall series. I truly appreciate the innovation that's come from these Google Hangouts. For PASA students and the rest of our viewers, don't worry, as we'll be back next semester for our spring series. We actually have 5 Google Hangouts planned. Next month's topic is continuing your journey, relocating to a new city. Until then, have a fantastic Wednesday, everyone.
Bye. Bye.